England is home to a large number of ancient castles, a few still occupied. Some are now museums. However, others like Hadley Castle are now in ruins. But despite the misfortunes, Hadley Castle had a pretty impressive history. In this video, let us break down what happened to the great Hadley Castle. Hadley Castle was constructed in the 12th century by Hubert de Burgh, Earl of Kent, at a cost of considerable wealth. Hubert de Burgh served as the caretaker of Windsor and Dover castles, and in the words of historian David Ross of Britain Express, the de facto ruler of Britain. Sad he couldn't stay in his new castle for very long. I wonder why. Of course, silly me, de Burgh was imprisoned and eventually deprived of Hadley Castle in 1239 after he lost Henry III's favour. Too bad for Mr. de Burgh. However, the castle served an important economic and defensive function. In fact, Hadley Castle served as a symbol of de Burgh's riches and authority. The early 13th century, Hadley Castle was initially recognised for its strategic value by King Edward III, who reigned in 1327 to 1377 during the 100 Years' War. It was in a prime location to serve as a base for defending the Thames estuary against French incursions. War had broken out with France because of Edward's claim to the French throne. The king expanded and renovated Hadley Castle in 1360 in order to better defend the Thames estuary. During the years that the nation was free from the French, the castle had fallen into disrepair. Without this second security danger to England, it most likely would have been allowed to collapse completely into ruin. However, before the ruin, large sums of money were spent by Edward III on a chapel, a new entryway, a tall tower, and guest quarters. 2 imposing towers were added, changing the appearance of the east front. These towers had walls that were 9 feet thick at the base and had 6 sides that were round on the interior. Both towers had 3 floors, and newel staircases were incorporated into the thick walls to access the top floors. There are still the spread gaps where archers could be stationed for defence, built up against the south curtain wall. The King's Chamber housed a number of apartments, including a big hall with a solar, which is a withdrawing room, at the southern end. The hall featured a steeply pitched roof that was made of tile, thatch or lead. In the King's Chamber, there was plaster Paris from London, and Rayleigh glass were also used. Kentish ragstone was used to construct the castle, and a mortar made largely of seashells, particularly cockle shells, from Canvey Islands, nearby Cockle Beds, were used to bind the stone together. By 1249, a valuable tidal watermill had been constructed, which was necessary for producing bread for the castle. According to recent archaeological research, the mill was situated on a wharf that extended into the estuary just to the southeast of the castle. Sadly, the castle had been abandoned by the 1250s, and even after Queen Eleanor received it in 1273, improvements were made, but still remained in a comparatively bad state. After receiving the castle in 1299, Queen Margaret expressed dissatisfaction with the structure and demanded renovations. However, since Henry III did not spend much time here, the castle began to deteriorate. Plus, the castle, which was constructed on a geological unstable hill of London clay, has frequently experienced subsidence. Hadleigh underwent a period of renewal and reconstruction during the reigns of Edward II and his son Edward III, as a result of Edward II's much greater interest in the town of Hadleigh. From the beginning of his reign until 1324, Edward frequently visited Hadleigh Castle, occasionally sailing there from London on his royal barge, which anchored at a wharf south of the castle. Hadleigh Castle was acquired by Edward III in 1330, after it had been taken from him by his mother, Isabella of France. In the 1360s, Edward decided to make much greater use of the property and ordered large portions of it to be rebuilt at a cost of more than £2,200. Edward III's grandson, Richard II, made little use of Hadleigh Castle, and Aubrey de Vere was given permission to occupy the castle until his death in 1400. The towers, royal quarters and remaining walls are seen from the south, were depicted in an etching from 1783. The castle was owned by a variety of prominent people in the 15th century, although the Crown used it seldom. The estate started to be divided up after 1544. First the parks were sold, then the actual castle was, which Lord Richard Rich acquired from Edward VI in 1551 for £700. Between 1551 and 1575, Rich principally disassembled the castle for the worth of its stone, and the now completely destroyed castle was passed down through Rich's ancestors. As a prelude to 10 oil sketches and 1 painting, the English painter John Constable visited Hadleigh in 1814 and drew the castle. Hadleigh Castle is an oil painting that was created in 1829 and displayed at the Royal Academy the same year, while the painting is presently on show at the Yale Centre for British Art in New Haven, Connecticut. One of the sketches is on display at the Tate Gallery in London. According to art historians Tamis Groft and Mary Mackay, Constable's painting, which they call one of his most massive works, shows the early 19th century Hadleigh Castle as a deteriorating man-made structure that has fallen prey to the forces of nature. In 1891, William Booth bought Hadleigh Castle and the surrounding land for the Salvation Army. who set up a farm there to teach the English poor before sending them to the British colonies. Between 1898 and 1923, there was significant subsidence and slippage on the crest, which led to the southern curtain wall collapsing. In 1948, the Salvation Army donated the castle to the Ministry of Works. Now, it belongs to English Heritage and is a Grade 1 listed building and scheduled monument. The 19th century Salvation Army farm still encircles the castle, and beyond that lies Hadley Country Park, which is owned and operated by Essex County Council. Okay everybody, a very, very big thank you for joining me here at Hadley Castle, and Yana and I hope you enjoyed this video. Until next time, stay safe, keep well, and bye for now. Bye everybody.